Viral video. Canadian woman urges locals to claim refugee status for better government benefits. A video recently surfaced featuring commentator Clyde, whose voice trembles with suppressed anger as she recounts her 2 decades of labor and contributions to Canada's tax system. From her first job at 16, she faithfully contributed earnings and premiums until, in her 40s, she was laid off. She describes receiving only 6 weeks of employment insurance, barely enough to cover rent, and contrasts that with the assertion that refugees entering Canada today receive more than 3,800 Canadian dollars per month, tax-free from day one. Her shocking suggestion? That disenfranchised Canadians might benefit more by renouncing their IDs, crossing the border, and re-entering the country as refugees. On platforms like X and Reddit, her message swiftly gained traction. Conservatives, including Pierre Poilievre, have seized on the topic, framing it as a symptom of governmental nonsense and misplaced generosity. Many users echo Clyde's frustration, sharing posts about refugee families living in subsidized housing, receiving expanded child benefits and tax credits, while older Canadians struggle to make ends meet. One viral social media comment highlights this contrast powerfully. It mentions retirees scraping by on small pensions and working-class Canadians unable to afford rent in cities. This imagery of disparity has fueled an emotional backlash, with many asking why their years of labor earn so little payback. Clyde doesn't stop at emotional appeal. She broadens the critique to economic policy. In recent months, Canada has admitted nearly 500,000 temporary foreign workers, an unprecedented influx, while unemployment remains persistently high. Clyde cites figures suggesting around 1.55 million Canadians are jobless, more than 60% of whom have been unemployed for over a year. This, she argues, demonstrates profound self-sabotage. Why import foreign labor when Canadians are still waiting for their opportunity? Indeed, official job statistics align with Clyde's concern. Youth unemployment is climbing toward levels unseen since the 1990s. In May, seasonal student unemployment hit approximately 20%, and joblessness among non-student young people hovered around 12%, painfully high in a wealthy nation. Meanwhile, the overall unemployment rate hovers near 7%. For many, those numbers affirm a failed promise. Canada's labor market is not delivering security for its own citizens before offering it to others. In Quebec, a notable policy pivot has occurred. The province recently paused issuance of non-resident work permits. Clyde applauds this move, seeing it as a tangible action redirecting opportunities toward domestic job seekers. She describes recent graduates burdened with student debt, scrambling for internships or temporary gigs, only to be outcompete by cheaper temporary foreign labor. She warns against a widening gap between credential accumulation, master's degrees and multiple certifications, and real-world job availability, worsened by automation and artificial intelligence. Beyond labor, Clyde nails a harder truth. Canada's economy has been running in a rut. Average annual GDP growth over the last decade clocks in at roughly 0.5%, lagging behind many peer OECD nations. She paints a visceral image of retirees living month to month, public servants and private sector workers feeling trapped in precarious, underpaid roles. The narrative of a bright future has frayed, replaced by anxiety over inflation, stagnant wages, and cost of living pressures. Vocational trades like plumbing, welding, and appliance repair were once pathways to middle-class security, but are now sidelined in a cultural push toward university degrees. Government responses do little to soothe this despair. The federal plan to create a mere 6,000 jobs for youth strikes Clyde as tokenism, symbolic gestures in the face of systemic unemployment. She asks, when trade schools starve and labor markets falter, why not redirect resources to build apprenticeships and guarantee real employment for Canadians instead of depending on foreign-born temporary workers? On the flip side, newly installed Prime Minister Mark Carney offers a tempered, yet pragmatic counterpoint. Since winning the Liberal leadership nomination on March 9th and calling a snap election for April 28th, he has navigated a politically turbulent landscape. Carney, a former central banker and economist, rolled out a balanced agenda, tightened border controls, introduce the Strong Borders Act, overhaul housing spending, and step up vocational training incentives. His message: Canada needs newcomers, but only when the economic groundwork has been laid. Carney highlights immigration as a tool, not a crutch. He emphasizes that revenue from new trade tariffs will be invested in training, infrastructure, and matching immigrant intake with realistic housing capacity. He positions himself as the architect of a managed immigration system, one that ensures schools, hospitals, and transit systems can absorb growth, rather than buckle under pressure. In his vision, Canada should welcome newcomers in a way that uplifts both future generations and current residents, not pit them against each other. Politically, Carney leads a narrow minority government after a tight race. The Liberals captured 168 seats, just shy of a majority, while Poilievre's Conservatives clinched several strongholds but faltered in key urban districts. Poilievre promises more aggressive action on housing, immigration caps, and tax relief, but critics accuse him of stirring populist sentiments and stoking resentment against newcomers. Meanwhile, the New Democratic Party is recalibrating after disappointing results, and the impending leadership reshuffle, renewing questions about progressive influence in shaping post-pandemic recovery. The core of Clyde's viral message goes beyond policy numbers. It cuts to social identity. Who deserves first claim to Canada's limited resources? Is it the elderly who spent decades paying into the system? The young who feel locked out? Or is it newcomers fleeing crisis, stepping into programs built by Canadian taxpayers? For many, this raises fundamental questions about national purpose, equity, and intergenerational fairness. The clash is stark. On one side, some voices argue for a pause on immigration until Canada rebuilds schooling, healthcare, and affordable housing. On the other side, advocates warn that contractionist policies risk exacerbating labor shortages, stalling innovation, and undermining Canada's economic stature on the global stage. Carney's plan seeks middle ground, shrink projected intake while shoring up domestic workforce readiness and infrastructure, delaying immediate change in favor of sustainable transition. At its core, Clyde's video demands a reckoning. It forces a spotlight on hidden frustrations, middle-class precariousness, regional disparities, and a growing sense that economic opportunity is a limited pie. Her assertion may be provocative, asking Canadians to consider claiming refugee status, but the underlying truths resonate: who benefits from national policy and who gets left behind. As Canada charts its post-2025 path, that question remains urgent, unsettled, and essential.